The ancient caravan way station of Sarif is landmark 53 that the Prophet ﷺ passed through on his way to the Hajj. Like all of these landmarks that we've passed, they've become obsolete because of the roads that are built for the cars today. So the caravan trade routes have kind of finished off. But this, being just within earshot of Mecca, is still very busy as a area just outside of Mecca. Now, during the farewell pilgrimage, the Prophet ﷺ and his companion, whilst they reached Sarif on Saturday 3rd of Dhul-Hijjah, Sayyidina Aisha began to menstruate. Aisha stated that the journey to Mecca only had been for Hajj up until the caravan reached Sarif, where the Prophet ﷺ commanded the pilgrims that they should make the intention to perform Umrah unless they had already purchased the animal for sacrifice. However, since Aisha was on a menses, she was unable to make the Umrah and was disappointed. She stated that the Prophet ﷺ entered a tent while she was crying and asked her, what is the matter with you, Aisha? Are you losing blood? She replied, yes. By Allah, I wish I had not come out with you this year on this journey. And he replied, do not say that. You will be able to perform every rite of Hajj except of making the tawaf. Sayyidah Aisha did not miss out eventually on making the Umrah. She was able to perform the Umrah after she had completed. It was also near Sarif that the angel Jibreel informed the Prophet ﷺ that God had commanded him to recite the Quran in 7 styles. The Messenger of God ﷺ was by the pond belonging to the Ghifar tribe when Jibreel came to him and said, God commands you to teach your ummah the Quran with one way of recitation. He said, I ask my Lord for protection and forgiveness. My ummah cannot bear that. Then he came to him a second time and said, God commands you to teach your ummah the Quran with 2 ways of recitation. He ﷺ again said, I ask my Lord for protection and forgiveness, for my ummah cannot bear this. And this to and from happened 7 times. And on the 7th occasion, when Jibreel came down, he said, God commands you to teach your ummah the Quran with 7 ways of recitation, and whichever way they recite, it will be correct. Also in Sarif lies the grave of al-Mu'mineen, Sayyidina Maymuna. If you remember, in the year 6th of Dhul-Hijjah, whilst the Treaty of Hudaybiyah was signed, the Muslims were unable to make their Umrah. But the next year, the Umrah was completed. So they call it Umrah al-Qadha, in the year 7th of Hijrah. The Prophet ﷺ also, at that, he wanted to marry Sayyidina Maymuna bint al-Haritha in Mecca, but the people of Mecca refused this, since the purpose of this visit was to perform Umrah and not to get married. When the Prophet ﷺ left Mecca, he stopped in Sarif and married Maymuna and spent the night there. 40 years later, in the year 51 Hijri, Maymuna bint al-Haritha went on Hajj. After she had completed her Hajj, she became ill, and while still in Mecca, she was taken to Sarif, to the exact spot where she married the Prophet ﷺ 4 decades earlier. Her request was granted, honouring the only wife of the Prophet ﷺ that was still alive. She later died and was buried in the shade of a tree, in the same place where she had wedded the Prophet ﷺ. The valley of Yajaj is location number 54 that the Prophet ﷺ passed on his way to the Hajj. This valley is located just outside of the sacred precinct of the Haram. During the Battle of Badr, Abu al-As ibn al-Rabi, the husband of the Honorable Zainab, radiyallahu anha, the daughter of the Prophet ﷺ, was taken prisoner And Zainab sent a necklace that once belonged to her mother, the noble Khadija radiallahu anha, as a ransom for her husband. When the Prophet ﷺ saw the necklace of his late and beloved wife, he made a request: if you would consider not only releasing Zainab's prisoner, but returning her belongings to her, it would be well. The request was granted, and Abu al-As ibn al-Rabi was released and Zainab's necklace was returned. The Prophet ﷺ then asked Abu al-As ibn al-Rabi to send Zainab to Medina. Zainab was met at the valley of Yajaj by two companions, Zayd ibn al-Haritha and a man from the Ansar tribe, whom accompanied Zainab back to Medina. When the Prophet ﷺ headed to Mecca in the year 7th Dhul-Hijjah to perform the fulfilled Umrah, he stopped at Mar al-Zahran, where the animals were selected, the stop previously to this, and the sacrificial animals were sent here to Wadi al-Yajaj. Doing so, the Quraysh realized what the Prophet ﷺ was here for Umrah, and there was no threat of war.